in this path or this journey that you guys are on, in the very first phase of this, is when you, and that's what today is about. Today is about the journey. That's what today's title is called, the journey. And in the phase one of the journey, it's always about the individual, and you'll pick up where you're at. It's about the individual looking at the external world and looking for itself in the external world. And it looks to accomplish and achieve and to grow and expand in form. And that is reflected through being a successful or having lots of money, having lots of material things, having lots of credentials. It identifies itself as form, therefore it looks to grow in form. It looks to grow its identity. It looks to grow its self-identity. So it looks to grow its ego. Right? But then something happens. That individual goes and grows, but still finds something missing. It achieves, it succeeds, but there's still something missing. It misses, it fails, there's still something missing. So that individual goes, it's not out there, it's in here. And begins a path inward. Because it says and it sees in others achieving and still being unfulfilled, failing and still being unfulfilled. So it begins the path inward and starts to look or search, because externally you look, you search inside. It starts to search. And at the beginning it doesn't even know what it's searching for. But it starts the journey inward and begins to search. This is called phase two, where the individual, the drop, is now looking for its power internally, not externally. But in this part, in this phase, the phase two part, the individual is saying, well, the external is not important. It's what goes on the inside that's important. So forget about the money. Forget about what people think about me. There's no power in my business. There's no power in money. There's no power in people, what people think of me. Anything that is externally related is like, phew. In other words, it judges the external world and puts preference on the internal world, and the internal's real and the external's not. Now, that is true, right? When you're on that phase of the journey. But ultimately where I want to take you is when you will arrive to a place where the external and the internal world come together and they become one of the same. It's not, you see, it's still duality. Some people become in denial of what's taking place out there, right? But it's part of the path. Just like it was part of the path for you to come here as an infinite energy and then manifest yourself or perceive yourself to be a drop or a separate part of the infinite energy and call yourself finite and limited. Just the same. People come up to me and they go, well, I have children. How do I raise them consciously? I say, support them in losing themselves and then support them in finding themselves. No, but I don't want them to lose. I want them to stay conscious. But it came here. And whether you like it or not, it's going to think it's small. The only thing you could do is support the child to keep feeling and connecting with itself through whatever it's going through. To not deny the feeling. So just like that you came here and you are now experiencing yourself as being a finite being. The same thing goes when you bring in your journey internal. You start to realize well, you start to have preference or judgment and go, well, it's the internal where I'm finding self-fulfillment. Forget about the external world. I don't want to know about it. But you see, at this stage, the external and the internal one are two separate things still. It's still duality. But it's okay. That's the path. But you must do that. You must bring all your attention internally. And you must process all these fears and judgments and resistance and suffering. All these emotions that you've shoved down, you must address those. The positive and the negatives, and get to a place that you can neutralize these charges, so you are in a place of non-judgment, which means you are in a place of being open to all possibilities, which is being open to your infinite self. What I'm trying to say is you must feel a sense of completeness internally before you can come back out to who you truly are as an infinite being. You cannot come out. This next 6 months is about coming out. But you cannot come out if there is a judgment or a charge or an attachment. What are the charges, the attachments? They're just places where you've still got power in. In other words, you've got power externally. You must reclaim that power internally, so it's neutral. Now, some people come to that place of neutrality, and like I just said to you before, and that is described as phase 2. And they feel completely free within themselves because the drop has found the ocean within itself. Great. And at that place, you don't feel you need to be anywhere else further. You don't feel that you need to do anything. It feels like you're already home. But after a little while, some of you might be at that place and be feeling really joyful. But then you feel, oh, it's time to move again. And when I say move, to go deeper. And going deeper in the path or in the journey back home is to now begin to bring yourself back outside. If you think about this, at the WTF experience, in the meditation, the oneness meditation, you guys remember that? Okay? I talk about it all the time in previous OMGs. In the oneness meditation, I'll remind you what you did in that meditation, what I guided you guys and facilitated to do is to go outwards. You didn't go inwards. You began to notice your body. You began to notice the circumference or the parameters of your body. Then you started to go within the space of the aura of your body. And you started to go out within the space of the empty space that fills the room. And onwards and onwards, you started to go outwards and outwards. Until you went out into emptiness. What did you feel? You see, it's not internal, it's outside of you. You, by placing your attention, went outwards. And you felt freedom. You felt love. And the biggest thing that people say is, I felt like I didn't need to be anywhere else. There was no more need. Where was that? It wasn't here. It was outside. It's probably one of the most powerful process, if I can call it a process or meditation, that people talk about after experiencing the WTF. That one meditation. It's only when you are ready that you will begin to take the steps or begin to bring your attention outside. And when you're bringing your attention back outside, the external world and the internal world become one of the same. That's what oneness is. Oneness is not internal, and then there's this external. Well, that's two. That's not one. I'm just experiencing oneness within myself. It's outside and inside. It's when the outside and the inside become one of the same. So today, I want to give you as many references. I've just described the journey, described the path. But I want to give you as many references to what I'm talking about. That's all I can do. Reference, reference, reference. As every reference I give, you go, oh, yep, done that. Yep, been there. When you first take this path, now I'll go back to myself and give you my many references for myself, and then we'll talk about many references for you guys. When I first took this path, at first, for me, it was all about the others. It was all about everyone else. It was all about what I really wanted for myself. But because I didn't know who myself was, then I would make it about the others. It was about me being spiritual, me being loving. It was all about the service. I am here to bring service to people. I am here to change people's lives. I am here to change the world. Now here's the thing, right? May I just add this one point? Nothing has changed. This is what you're going to realize. Nothing has changed. I still service people. I still am here for others. I still am here to change the world. But who is doing that is different. And you'll see what I'm saying in a moment. And this is what I talk about, where people get woo-woo, high in the cloud stuff, and they can't live this, is when they first commence their path to phase 2. I didn't say arrive at phase 2 or in that space of phase 2. They just, from phase 1, they commence their path to phase 2. And when they first commence their path to phase 2, it's all about the love. But the ideal love they've got in their mind is the human love. It's all about the service. But what changes? When you have become complete within yourself, because what you make it about in the external world is really what you haven't completed within yourself, right? But when you have made it complete, when you have arrived within yourself where you have felt a sense of completion, in other words, when you are making about something external, it's no longer driven by an agenda. It's no longer driven by an agenda to receive something back, to receive a sense of identity that you are worthwhile or that you are loving or whatever. It no longer, what happens is this. You may still make it about the service, or about the people. But it's not the people you're making it about. It's about the you, the true you, that is showing up in the people. In other words, you're actually servicing yourself. Here's the thing. If I can go back to my own journey, it became all about the people. And I felt the love that I was searching for in myself the moment I made it about the people. But that love wasn't mine. It was a love that was borrowed. In other words, when I would make it about the people, I would feel so loving. But that wasn't who I was. It came from what I did. It didn't come from who I am. So therefore, I became a slave to what I do. So I needed to still make it about the people and make it about the service. Because when I did make it about the people, I felt good about myself. But like I said, I borrowed that feeling. It wasn't coming from who I was, it was coming from what I did. You see, the true essence of who you are comes from who you are, not from what you do. I talk about this in the WTF when I say when I speak about purpose. In phase 1, going on to phase 2, it was all about finding your purpose. Because when I was doing something purposeful, I would have a borrowed feeling, a moment where I felt that purpose, but it will go. And I would become a slave to continue doing that just so I can get that sense of love or sense of purpose. We're talking about the same thing, sense of purpose, sense of love. But I keep talking about, in the WTF experience, that purpose. One day I woke up and I realized purpose was not in what I did. Purpose was in who I was, who I am. And when I realized who I am, I became purposeful. Then I would give purpose to whatever I did. Everything I would do would be done purposefully. But because the purpose was coming from me to what I do, then I didn't become a slave to what I do. You see, one day I woke up. This is after about 3 years of my journey. 3 years seriously on this path. And when I say seriously, I devoted myself to following this feeling that I thought at first I was crazy. You see, at the beginning, I thought I was just, this is crazy. But when I realized I wasn't crazy, 3 years from that point, that's when my path really started. 3 years on this path, and I was just speaking. The only thing that I felt to do was speak. So I would just speak. I didn't do promoting. I didn't do marketing. Promotion was my background. Didn't do any of it because I didn't feel to do it. Didn't hire a team. Leadership and team building is my background. It's my natural essence. Didn't do any of it because I didn't feel moved to. Now, I'm going to use this word moved, right? And I've been using this word moved over the last 6 months. And people, when they're just internalizing a lot of the stuff, all right, this is where you can get woo-woo, they feel like the feeling of being moved to do something is the same feeling of wanting to do something. Ooh, I want this. And then they go, I feel moved. I feel moved towards this. But what they're really saying, it's just bullshit. What they're really saying is, I want this. Right? Because if I can have this, my identity will feel more expanded and I will have a sense of happiness momentarily. You see, feeling moved, which is very important to identify for the next 6 months. Feeling moved is the same feeling that I describe when I say to you, it feels like you don't have a choice in the matter. It's like the decision was made. It's the same as when the individual jumps in a burning house and saves people, and then they go, what were you thinking? And they go, I wasn't thinking. I just did it. It's the same feeling when you do what's true for you. And when you do it, you don't know how you did it. Everything happened effortlessly, and people came up to you and said, how did you do that? And you have no idea how you did it because you didn't even decide to do it. Feeling moved, if I can show you this on a physical level, is like this. You're sitting down and then suddenly it's can you see that? The feeling comes from within you. You're getting moved by the feeling. It's not, that's the difference. The one is, hello, that's an agenda. That's what people could describe as greed. You don't really want it. You just think if you have it, you will feel what you've been looking for within yourself. It's different. When you feel moved, you, the body, the form, the identity, when I say you, the identity, and the I of the infinity are one. You're moving as one. And that's why it's so weird. But when you're moving as one, you don't notice, but you're experiencing it as being effortless. But it's only when you stop and look back and go, how did I do that? Because me as the identity, I've never done that before. How did I do that? So, as I was sharing with you my story, after 3 years of my path, I suddenly didn't feel moved anymore to speak. And for the last 3 years, that's all I felt moved to do. To speak, to get up and talk what I'm feeling inside of myself. But there was no business model. There was no financial reward. I would just get out there and talk. That's all I felt to do. Just talk this stuff for free. I used to go do it for free and people would pay whatever they felt. And when I say they paid whatever they felt, they would pay $20, $10, $50. So I no longer felt moved to speak. And then I sat there. It was such an alien feeling. Well, if I no longer feel moved to do this, what am I going to do? Because I needed to replace the doing that I was. You see, I felt moved from speaking. And then I would put my power into doing. It's because I'm doing this that I feel my purpose. You see, at this stage, I'm not recognizing that the purpose is not coming from what I'm doing. The purpose is coming from who I'm being. Because my realization of who I am was not deep yet. So therefore, I would get the recognition of who I am from what I did, not from who I was. So the moment I no longer felt moved to speak, my purpose went again. And I was like, what am I meant to be doing? And I looked for the next doing. And I sat with the feeling, and it said nothing. Sit. So I sat. And I would sit there in North Bondi Beach, and I would sit. And I waited 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. And by this stage, it never mattered to me what was happening in the story. Because I was totally internal. And then one day, the feeling felt moved again. Guess how it came? Driving along one day, I spoke about this in one of the months, and suddenly there was a sign just there on the, what's that suburb called, just down the road? Edgecliff. You remember the story? No. Oh, well, okay. I was driving through Edgecliff, and anyway, there was a sign on the building. It said, office for lease. The feeling moved. And he said, go get an office. What for? I'm not speaking. I'm like, but I knew now. I knew I'm getting an office. I'm not sure why. I think it's related to what I'm doing with speaking. Like I was pretty sure about that. But I didn't know why am I getting an office. Within 4 or 5 months later, I had a team. And I was speaking again. But here's the thing. And this is what I'm trying to describe to you. This time, because I've done this before many years. I've done the speaking for the last 6 years. I've done the promoting for the 6 years before that. So over 12 years I've done this. But this time, this felt different. And how did it feel different? I will come back to this story, but it felt like that I was learning to walk again. Because here's the thing, I now know that there is no power outside of me. All right? When you know there's no power outside of you, you get to a place where you're like, well, I don't have to do anything. Yeah? When you're in that moment of oneness or bliss, when you're in that moment of joy, you don't have to do anything. So when I came and now I'm building a business, I am now speaking, it felt like, well, I don't need a website. I don't need to have clients. People will come. Can you see what I'm saying? And that's great. Because it's in that moment where you no longer need to speak that you clear yourself open to be moved to do something. And people make this mistake all the time. And it's not really a mistake, it's just part of the process. We're like, I don't feel like I need to do anything. So then they do nothing. Their head goes, well, I don't need to do anything. But that's the place you need to arrive at, where you, the identity, no longer needs to do anything. So that moment where I felt like I no longer feel moved to speak, the identity wanting to speak was beginning to die. So then I was confused. Well, what am I meant to do? But in that place where I no longer needed to speak, that's when I became free to speak. But guess who's speaking now? Do you get what I'm saying? Where before, the identity will speak. But if the identity sits back, and you can relate this speaking to any area of your life. Listen to me, don't get lost in my story. When I no longer needed to do that, that's when I became free to let the feeling move through me. And before I knew it, I was doing what I'm doing. Before I knew it, I was speaking again. And that's when I got the lesson. When I got the lesson that purpose is not in what I do. Purpose is in who I am. I then use my tools, my vehicle, whether it's this body, and I paint through it. How many times have you heard me say in the WTF, you are not this body? And when you realize that this is not who you are, you become the power or the feeling that moves through it. You see, when you're in phase 2 or on your path to phase 2, because phase 2 is a beautiful place, but on your path to phase 2, on your path where you're very open to be woo, high in the cloud, this is what happens. You use the power. You're like, I got to put it out there for it to happen. I need to let go for it to happen. You are using the power. You know that there's infinite part of you. You're beginning to sense that there is the ocean within you as the drop. You're beginning to sense that. So you're beginning to sense the infinite power that you have access to, that you could use. Do you understand what I'm saying? But what I'm talking to you about is not using the power, you become the power. The only thing you use is anything that you are expressing through. Do you understand? When you're the drop, you're trying to use the power. But when you are the power, you use whatever you're expressing your power through. I am now using this body to express my power through words. You've got to really ponder on that. This is what today is about. What does it mean to give your power to something versus express your power through something? One is, I'm not the power. The power is outside of me. I am using my power. So then I'm giving power to this big me. Can you see that? You're even giving power to the big infinite you. I'm not the infinite me. I'm just a little me identity. And you give your power to this big you. So then you have to praise it, and then you have to, blame it or appreciate it. Give credit to it. Can you see that? Versus allowing yourself to realize or come to the realization that you are the power, and that you as the power is painting or expressing that feeling through you, through what you do. Do you see the difference? This next 6 months we're going to be working about, we're having the same conversation over and over again. It's all about the journey, and it's all about the story, but it's not about putting your power in the story or becoming of it. It's about using it, expressing through it. But in order for you to do that, you must first come back out. And slowly, slowly you begin to come back out. Slowly, slowly. In relation to doing what you feel moved to do, don't search for it. And know why you feel the need to search for it. Why would you feel the need to search for, what is it that I feel moved to do? Microphone? Because there's something missing. Thank you. Because there's something missing. So therefore, you are looking to replace what is missing in what you do. Because it is through your doing that you can take yourself away from the space of something missing. And what is missing? Just the other parts of you. Guess where the other parts of you are? Outside. Everywhere. In the rock, in the tree, in the ether, in the space. Not just inside of you. It's outside as well. But when you have judgment towards the external, or judgments towards the internal, you don't see it. If you have judgment towards something you've labeled as positive or negative, as good, as bad, as right or as wrong, you don't see it. You don't see the other part of yourself. What you see instead is your judgments. And that's why you take the journey internal, to resolve your own judgments. The only judgments you have is the judgments you have of yourself. You have judgments of yourself, then you see those judgments being played out in your story. Then you judge the story. And that just locks it in. It's because of that. And this is the thing, what I want you to understand is, you never understand the feeling until you bring the feeling out. The very example of how I run this OMG is exactly how I run my entire life. When I come and present OMG, I just have a feeling. I have a feeling, and I could probably describe that feeling of what I'm going to say in a sentence. I'm going to be talking today about the journey in and out. I'm going to talk about the difference between, that's probably all I know. I just got a feeling of the journey. That's it. It's just a feeling. But there's no words or description to that feeling. It's a feeling. It's like the feeling is raw. I don't want to bring it out until I'm meant to bring it out. In other words, I don't drive here going, what am I meant to talk about? Okay, I can talk about this, I can talk about this, I can talk. Well, then I'm bringing it out. Then when I come here, I'm speaking about what's already been coming out, which is form. Then you don't feel it. I wait until the moment that I'm meant to speak. I have a feeling, just a feeling. The feeling sits there. And then when I come and sit here, I begin to draw from the feeling branches, just like branches of a tree. Branches come out. And I bring into form through words the feeling, and you guys sense the feeling that I'm expressing. You either listen to the words or you sense the feeling. That's how it happens. I don't need to know. People think that on this path, that when you get to a place where you become all-knowing. The one who is all-knowing knows nothing. So, I mentioned to you before that, how I came about. I do have to go a little bit into story just to give you reference points. Okay? But don't listen to the story, just relate the story back to your life. I mentioned before that I came back into the business world, right? I used to be a promoter. I left all that because I realized the business, the money, the marketing, whatever I was doing, the sales, the promoting, wasn't getting me what I wanted. It was getting me that momentarily, right? So I realized that. So then I went to this internal world. And I got to tell you, when I was in the business world, my biggest strength was being intuitive. Like the people in my company always knew Amir was intuitive. And I didn't know why I was intuitive. I didn't even know what my intuition was. I just knew I was intuitive. And I would say, hey, we need to do an event this size. Hey, this is what we need to do next. Hey, guys, this is what's going to happen. The guys would that ain't happening because what's happening is this. I'm like, yeah, but this is what's going to happen next. And this is the direction we need to move. And then we would move that direction. They were like, how did you know that? So the whole team, okay, especially my management team, would know that I was an intuitive person. And for me, it was just like no big deal. I could just be intuitive. I would just be like using my intuition, and I would be okay with I would say the unknown, but it's not the unknown. I'll be okay. I just know it's going to happen, right? And when I went to the internal, I started to internalize my process. In other words, I left my company, all right? Started to take the journey inward and go, well, it's got nothing to do with the external. I began to realize what the intuition was or where it was actually coming from, all right? And I began to, if you like, study my own intuition. I would use my intuition to self-realize who I was. My intuition. It was my inner tuition. I used that one thing and drew that one thing in all areas of my life. So here's my point. After 3 years of internalizing and going through this process, I started another company again, Be Free People. All right? The next company came up. But like I said to you before, it felt like I was learning to walk again. Why did it feel like I was learning to walk again? Because I knew it had nothing to do with my guys. It had nothing to do with my staff, my team, whether we were successful or not. It had nothing to do with the marketing we would do. It had nothing to do with our website. Now, can you see I'm pretty fucked up now? I'm like, well, am I meant to build a website now? Or am I meant to build a team? Like, am I meant to have the appropriate team? What am I meant to do? So the first 6 months, it felt like I was learning to walk again, because I didn't know how to use these things that I would normally put power into, because now I knew there was no power in there. So what happened? I learned when I started to walk again, right? All I did was do what's true for me. What did I feel moved to do with the website? What do I feel moved to do with the marketing? So guess what? Till 4 weeks ago, I didn't feel moved to do marketing. Until 4 weeks ago, I never felt moved to do any marketing. So guess how much marketing our company's ever done? Nothing. Like nothing. I have a marketing person, but he manages the website, manages what's coming in. He's not going out and finding new people. So where do the people come from? You see, back to what we're talking about today, when you feel a sense of completeness within yourself, that is when that you have the capacity to be able to speak and walk what's true for you. And when you're doing that, people will feel a great warmth and love from you. But they weren't trying to be loving. They were doing what's true for them. And some will experience that as a negative experience. Some will experience it as a positive experience. Some will experience it as a loving experience, where it's the positive and negative together. When you have found a sense of completeness within yourself, then, here's the thing, then you can make it about others, about the service. But hear me out. You're not trying to make it about others or about the service. The very first thing I say, one of the first things that I say at the WTF experience is, I'm not here for you. I am here to speak what's true, what I feel moved. And if what I feel moved is providing service, insights, and breakthroughs, and transformations for you, then so be it. But you may judge or label your experience as, he's making me feel discomfort. And then you may label me as whatever you want to label. Or you may label it as, wow, he's really loving. But do you understand? I'm not trying to be loving. I'm just speaking what's true for me. But people have to first internalize or complete who they are within themselves for them to realize what is true for them. Because at the first part of this journey, you think to yourself, I feel moved to do this. It's not. It's what you feel need to do this. You know, you go, oh, this feels true for me. But it's not. It's a reaction. It's a fine line, right? But the more you feel at home with yourself, the more you'll realize what's true for you, what's moving through you. The more you arrive at a place where you no longer need to do something, you're feeling a sense of wholeness, completion, right where you are, then what you feel move through you comes. Like I said to you before, I sold my company previous to this one, and I did nothing for 6 to 9 months. Why? Because I was waiting to find what I felt moved to do. Then it came to me, I'm going to start speaking. I immediately put that into practice. I started speaking. I said to myself, what am I going to speak about? It said it will come to you in the moment. Don't plan it. I put that into practice. Did that take a lot of courage? Yeah, because I didn't know what I was going to say. And I've never spoken. I was never a speaker before. The most I did was MC, I didn't have any content. So a group of people came together and I started and I said, welcome, that's what I knew. After the welcome came the rest of the entire one-day program. That then turned into speaking. And I started becoming a speaker. And I started speaking in different cities and traveling wherever I could. And for the next 3 years, I just spoke and spoke one program. Back then it was called The Quest for Truth, which is now the WTF Experience. Now, that's all I did, spoke that weekend program over and over and over again. That's all I did. No coaching, or maybe a little bit of coaching, but no other programs. There was no retreats, there was no OMG, there's nothing. I just kept doing that program. And then I started putting power into becoming a speaker. I feel purposeful when I'm actually doing the speaking. So, therefore, I need to build my speaking career. See, I put the power into speaking. Then I realized that ain't it. Everything, I try to go build a company, I try to go build a team, I try to implement what I know from the past, none of it worked. None of it. 2 offices I went through. First office I got, we were out. Second office I got, couldn't pay the rent, it was none of it was true. I just went into what I did because I put power into, well, I'm here to speak. So I'm here and my purpose is to change the world and to bring change and da-da-da-da-da. Then I realized I no longer need to speak. And I was thinking, what's going on here? Well, the need melted away. And I started to realize purpose, I still feel purposeful. At first I didn't because I was like an alien feeling. What am I feeling? I'm going to find something else I've got to do. And then the feeling said no. So I just sat. And then I started to feel purposeful without doing anything. And I realized, holy shit, purpose was never in what I did, it's in who I am. Then I felt moved to go speak again. But this time, the person that was speaking was far different. Because before, it's not that I wasn't connecting to the space, I was. But character, identity of Amir was filtering how it was coming out. It's not that I was saying anything different, saying the same thing. I'd love to show you a video of The Quest for Truth, when it first started. I'm saying exactly the same thing, but the space, so different. Exactly the same thing. Back then, the character was filtering how it was coming out. How many times do you not say something or do something from the fear of losing someone? Oh, jeez. Some of the things that you guys have seen me say to my employees, which one is what? Employees. Some of the team members, I couldn't say it if I had a fear of them, if I had a fear of losing them. And the only reason I would have a fear of losing them is because I've got power in them, thinking that I need them to play that role, otherwise this company won't operate. Yeah, it will. It's got nothing to do with them. They are me, and they're an aspect of myself, and just like I say, I'm speaking through you, I'm moving through them. In my Dico sitting there, I move through Dico. But just the same, Dico moves through me. It's the same one. I'm just trying to show you in the story how much things get freed up if you didn't have power in something. How do you know you've got power in something? We spoke about this in the month of Reclaiming Power. How do you know when you've got power in something? Very simple, just to remind you. Because you're trying to control it. You're trying to control your money situation. You're trying to control your team. You're trying to control your partner. You're trying to control your health. The moment you're trying to control something, you know it controls you. That's when you know you've got power in something. Okay, now I'm not going to talk about reclaiming power. You go back to month 1, watch what reclaiming power was. What's the reclaiming power process? We also spoke about not putting power into things, but now you know, right? The moment you go and to live in your story, you are going to be putting power into something. The moment I try to go do marketing, I'm either going to be putting power into marketing or I'm going to be expressing my creativity or my power through my marketing. What's the difference? When I do my marketing, I'm not looking back to see, hey, is it working? Who cares? That's what I felt to do. Do you understand the power of that? And then someone else will go, wow, that was really cool. That's a new, and they need to go, we need to write up what Amir Zoghi did there, because that's a new technique or tool we can teach in the marketing world. You have to tell people that you don't care, for example, because he looks like he just doesn't care. But and by the way, all right, when you realize that nothing matters, that's when something truly matters. People think, well, Amir, if I get what you're saying, then nothing matters. Yes, you get into the space where nothing matters, so full that the thing that truly matters can come through you. Suddenly, what you're doing and what's coming out of you matters. It's before that nothing mattered. You were doing all these things in hope that one of them would matter. And you're putting a lot of importance and confusing that with, oh, this matters. No, that's importance that you're putting on that is just according to the power you have in that. It doesn't matter for you. But if you reclaim your power, you realize nothing matters. And you don't feel the need to do anything. Then what truly matters comes through you. You feel it being moved. It moves you. There was a stage where I left my company and I went to the internal. And I started taking the journey internal. I was over here. This is even, financially even. And things are ending, no, what's the word? No. Making ends meet. This is making ends meet, right? Right in the middle. This is where I was. I was way behind, right? I was in debt. I was, continuously. I mean, my apartment that I lived in, right, was I think like $15,000 behind in rent, right? But this is my point. I was still living there, and I was still living a pretty good lifestyle. Even back then, if I had to travel, I even manifested business class flights somehow because I had points or, something in the story will show up. I mean, what I'm saying is I wasn't suffering. The suffering was taking place in here. If I look back, it was all okay. I think I spoke about this last month. I said to you about an interview that I did, and they said, if you look back in your life, what would be advice that you give to the old self? And the advice that I said was, everything is okay. Because if you truly knew that everything is okay, even though you're here, if you truly knew that, you'd be free. It has nothing to do with where you are. You'd be like, well, this is where I'm at, but everything's okay, right? Yeah, everything's okay. So you're speaking to your future self. Everything's okay. Yeah, everything's totally fine. Can't tell you what happens, but it's going to be it's going to be a great journey. I know, that's what I was trying to do. It's going to be a great journey. And you're like, really? You're like, yeah, 100%. Here's a feeling of what it feels like in the future. Yeah, swallow this pill. Oh, wow, that's awesome. Would you care where you are now? You'd be like, all right, everything's going to be fine. Just go through the process. Can you see what I'm saying? So, anyway, I was over here. And one day, I started to realize, okay, this is making ends meet. This is a 0 point. I'm over here, but I'm still alive. I still feel joy. I still feel love. I still live in the beautiful apartment that I choose to live in. Yes, I haven't paid the rent, because in the story came, yeah, but you haven't paid rent. Yes, I haven't paid rent, but I've manifested somehow a landlord who's financially driven, works in the banking world, he's all about what kind of watch do you wear, what kind of car you drive, and he's like, it's okay. Don't stress about your rent. I know you're good for it. Can you see what I'm saying? I couldn't afford to buy any food, but I would go to my mum's house, and in the story, my mum would give me all this food. I've been shopping here, and she would give me all this food. Does she do that for me now? No. But back then, I manifested my mum's. So I would leave my mum's house with shopping bags, toilet paper, honey, sugar, whatever, milk. It would show up somehow. So here's my point. One day I realized, well, because I thought I was living a pretty crap life, or I was thinking I was pretty, there's a lot of pressure, and there was. But I was like, but underneath the pressure, everything is okay. In fact, I'm still living what I love. But I've manifested in a limited way. Do you understand? Like in the story, I'm behind rent. In the story, I can't afford groceries. But things still show up, right? Now, some people get comfortable there, and that's called woo-woo. They're like, well, things show up, and they start looking for things to show up. Oh, I got this program for free. Oh, I got this for free. Oh, I won this. And it's all about the free things I got. Look at me, I got all this. One day I was like, well, if I'm manifesting this, why wouldn't I just manifest to pay for the rent? And that's when things shifted. That's when the space here, because it's not money that you lack or opportunities, it's space. The space started to open up. You want a bigger bank account? By the way, you don't care about that. But if I can just put that as a reference, bigger space. Bigger house, bigger space. Bigger opportunities, bigger space. Bigger business, bigger space. It's just the space. And what takes space away? All the things that consume space, all the things that take power from you, all the things that you need. These things take up space. So slowly my life started to change. Over the next 1 year in particular, things started to go like this. And then over the next maybe 6 months, I was here. Everything would show up just in time. I have to pay the rent, the money would show up. I paid all my rent off. Suddenly all my debts were paid. All the banks that were chasing me, the car company, all paid. I'm on this, and now I'm living this cycle of making ends meet. So I'm like, all right, well, this is working. So then I would go focus on expanding the business. Guess what would happen? What happens when I focus on expanding the business? Like, okay, I need to expand the business. Now, I as the infinite didn't decide that. I as the infinite doesn't care for that. I as the identity cares for that because I don't want to be in that position again. I decided to focus on expanding the business. Guess what took up space with me? Guess what took me out of the moment? It just creeps in. And before you know it, you're like, oh, so OMG is our most profitable thing. Okay, well, let's open up another OMG group. Let's go do. Before you know, you're like, hang on a sec. That's not what I felt to do. Why do I have 4 OMG groups now? Can you see? And you start chasing. You become a slave to the doing. And then I realized, oh, my space got small. Whenever I realize I've gone backwards, the space, you feel, got small. So then what I do, what normally people do if they're in the story, they start working hard on the story. But I know when I've gone backward, I'm conscious enough, and then I go and make more space by letting go of all the things that are taking up space, and I get back here. Now I know when I'm back here, what I got to do. I just make space. From here on in, I'm just making space. And then my life moves forward like this. Now, ahead, things are paid ahead. Before, things were paid just as I was going along, moment by moment. Now, my trip to the US in August is paid. My trip to the US in September is paid. The accommodation for them are paid. Normally, I'll just pay as I go along because that's what is in the company account. That's what's manifested itself into form. It just changed. Now, in the story, in the business story, I should be back here now. I'm trying to say to you, it has nothing to do with the story. It has to do with the space that you hold. As you expand your awareness, expand your space, the story manifests for it to come into form. You see, your manifestations just don't land at your feet. Like, it's not like $10 million or $100,000 you require just drops in a bag in front of you. No, it manifests itself into form, so it comes through your story. Does that make sense? Like, in the story, 50 people just joined your retreat, right? But and what happens is then people put power into the thing, and they go, oh, it's the retreat, so we got to focus on the retreat. That's the next event. No. X amount of money was required. X amount of people came to, and it got manifested into the story through the idea of a retreat. There is no power outside of you. You continuously place the power there and say it's because of this. Give it credit or you give it blame. But when you realize there's no power out of you, well, you're not going to just sit on a rock. You're still going to bring your power out. But the moment you bring it out, don't place your attention in the outcome, because that's putting your power into, like, if you want to lose weight, don't place your attention in the end outcome. Stay here. Stay here and do what you feel moved to do. You may have the realizations that you love to be trim. You may have the realization that you love to live a certain lifestyle. Don't go pursue it. It will come through you or it will come to you. Who's the one going pursuing it? It's the identity. Seriously guys, it's all about bringing this out. But in order for you to bring this out, you must first realize what this is. And that's what's been this internal journey. So you can realize what this is. But once you've realized what this is, it's all about bringing it out. Until you do that, you will never be alive. Furthermore, you will never be able to live any of this stuff that we're talking about it. You will know it, you will understand it, but you will not be able to live it. Because you don't have the capacity to live just the little thing that's for you. That one little thing that is you've come to give birth to spreads out to all things. You don't understand. Like, that is what I've done on this path. Just continue to take this feeling out. And like I said, I didn't even know what that was. And everybody in the group back then, in the mentoring group, they all like felt it, but they didn't know what I was talking about, nor did I. But it's only until now that I look back and I'm like, wow, And for me, it was just to speak and be able to take what's in here and just speak. I was just like, imagine if I was comfortable enough or confident enough just to speak. To me, that was when I would be free. No mistake that we call this be free. So, it's, and please understand, that feeling for me was to speak, but for you, it might be something else. It is something that you've come here to bring out into this world. And let me tell you something. Once there was a point where this became too difficult, and I was just like, just give me a normal life. I just want to be unconscious. This is just too damn difficult. You know what kept me going? You know what the feeling said? That's okay. But what you're feeling is going to come into this world if it's going to come through you or through another. And I guess the part of me that didn't want to miss out was like, fuck it, I'm up for it, let's go. Good to have the ego there that didn't want to miss out. There's two things, now three things that I would suggest that you do as part of this program. One is to re-experience the WTF at least another 3 times. 2 is to experience a retreat at least once in your 12 months. 3, to experience an OMG intensive. How do I know this? Because I've seen the difference between the people who have done those 3 things versus the ones who have not. I can only take you all the way if you are prepared to go all the way. It's plain and simple. And you're not going all the way for me or for your other team members here or participants. You're going all the way for yourself. So that brings us to the completion of the month of the journey.